tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Can't even afford to, drive it.
Barely scraping by. Taxi drivers and food couriers are among many people being squeezed by surging gas prices.
We haven't heard anything from the government yet about any support.
And there's no sign of relief.
I'm really looking forward to people coming back and reestablishing their life here.
An emotional day in Lytton. Crews are clearing away debris after last year's catastrophic fire.
Learning a lot of the terminology in the class was useful to be able to understand kind of the processes of what was happening here.
And a special brew. BC high school students dive into a growing industry on International Women's Day.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is off this week. Drivers are feeling a squeeze on their wallets across the South Coast and beyond when they go to fill up. Gas prices in parts of Greater Victoria have been smashing last week's already staggering prices. Take a look. A pair of gas stations in Souk were charging an unprecedented $2.16 a litre since yesterday. It's the highest price in the region, with other stations averaging about $2.08 for regular gas.
It costs about $125 to fill now. Used to be about $60.
That's why we bought this little vehicle. It gets better gas than a pickup truck sitting in the driveway. Because, what can you do, eh? You gotta suck it up.
Prices in Metro Vancouver were about $2.07 a litre this afternoon. The Husky in Chilliwack, however, peaked at $2.19 a litre. Experts have agreed prices are rising because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and BC is being indirectly hit as a result. Chief among those feeling the squeeze are people who drive for a living. Fuel prices are eating away at the wages of taxi drivers and food couriers. As John Hernandez tells us, there are growing calls for the province to do something.
Because we don't want to drive anymore.
It doesn't make much sense to idle today, not to mention hit the gas pedal.
The gas price is really too high. Can't even afford to, drive it.
The taxi industry, already facing its fair share of challenges, is now trying to grapple with fuel charges well above $2 per litre.
Oh, it's so tough for taxi industry, and we not make that much money because first we got ride sharing, then after that COVID. Now gas prices hit so hard. It's so tough for all the drivers.
The surging prices, a byproduct of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, are eating away at the wages of taxi drivers. They aren't allowed to increase fares, which are set by BC's Passenger Transportation Board. The BC Taxi Association is pleading with the board to let drivers add a fuel surcharge to fares. The board says it's reviewing the rates.
Because it's a really low meter right now, so the price is like more than 60 cents up, and the meter is still same. Yeah. If they, change the meter, that'd be great too.
But that won't solve challenges facing other gig workers like food couriers.
Skip is pretty stubborn and pretty strict with the changes.
This Skip the Dishes driver says the app keeps wages the same even with the rising fuel prices, and he's hoping the government can step in.
Because we haven't heard anything from the government yet about any support or any changes in the payment system.
What many drivers and workers want is for the province to follow Alberta's lead and reduce the carbon tax to offset fuel prices, calls that have been echoed by opposition leaders.
I think British Columbians naturally ask themselves the question, what exactly are you going to do? What kind of relief will we finally get?
Despite some of the highest gas rates in North America, the province has no plans to reduce or even freeze the carbon tax, saying there's no guarantees it would result in lower prices at the pump. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
A milestone in the community of Lytton today. For the first time, crews were able to use heavy machinery to start clearing away some of the debris from the catastrophic fire that hit that village 8 months ago. It's a small step forward in what is a long journey for people there. Brianna Schmunk was in Lytton today and has more from emotional officials focused on rebuilding.
This is the first opportunity that they have had here in Lytton to actually get the heavy machinery in to start clearing some of the debris. So today, as you can see behind me, they brought in an excavator and they're starting work on clearing things like twisted metal, melted glass, brick, any kind of debris that you would imagine would have been left behind by the fire that virtually destroyed the entire town core 8 months ago. The building they started on today was one of the museums, and they're trying to save anything they can to try and capture some of the town's heritage. And behind me, if you can see, that red truck is actually an old Lytton fire truck that they're hoping to pull out and save. And today is also an emotional day. There's a lot of residents here, and the mayor was also here. And it's emotional just because it's a sign of hope, it's a sign of moving forward, it's a sign that the rebuilding will eventually start here. And the mayor was quite emotional about that this afternoon.
I'm really hoping that, we're going to give them a sense of hope. It's been one setback after another. It's not really been anyone's fault or anything like that. It's just been the way it is. And, I'm really looking forward to people coming back and reestablishing their life here. That is what my aim has been for 8 months now.
Crews are aware that there could be hazards under this debris, things like asbestos or maybe artifacts that could be damaged, and if they find anything like that, they will have to stop the work or slow it down, but officials say they're hoping remediation can be complete by September, and they say they can get started on residents' homes as soon as they have permission to enter those properties. Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Lytton.
BC's long-promised COVID-19 vaccine mandate for all regulated health professionals will not come into effect later this month as planned. Instead of making the shot mandatory for healthcare workers who work in private practice like dentists, doctors, and chiropractors, a new order will require them to report their vaccination status to their colleges. Any worker whose vaccination status is, quote, not found must provide their records by March 31st. The health minister denies the province is backing away from that mandate.
What I'd say is that the order produced yesterday is not technical in nature. It's important, but it's a required step. And so I wouldn't draw any conclusions about that. We're going to be updating on this issue and a number of other issues on Thursday.
It's still unclear what the consequences might be for health professionals who did not submit their vaccination records. The promise of a vaccine mandate has been a major source of contention within certain professions. In December, chiropractors voted in favor of a non-binding resolution calling on their College of Chiropractors to, quote, take a stand against any mandates. Today is International Women's Day, and hospitality workers rallied in front of the Hilton Metro town in Burnaby to draw attention to the ongoing lockout impacting long-term women workers there. The workers have been locked out for almost a year after the hotel fired almost 100 of them during the pandemic. Their union, Unite Here Local 40, is calling on the hotel to bring an end to the lockout. The workers are launching a petition calling on wedding vendors to support those locked out. And they can't drink it yet, but some BC high school students are diving into a growing industry, beer making. For International Women's Day, a Penticton brewery invited students interested in STEM to help make a special beer. The CBC's Zamir Karim has more.
It's a special day at Tin Whistle Brewing in Penticton. For the first time, the brewery is participating in the Pink Boots Brew. It's the first opportunity for co-owner Alexis Esseltine to brew the specialty beer, which is brewed all over the world.
A bunch of women have come together to brew this beer together in celebration and to raise money for Pink Boots Society Canada, which is an organization that helps women and transgendered folk to kind of establish their careers in the brewing industry, because there aren't a lot of women in brewing, to be honest.
Alexis and her husband bought Penticton's oldest craft brewery in the fall of 2020. Several breweries in the South Okanagan city are co-owned by women, but the industry continues to be dominated by men.
It's a great opportunity to kind of showcase the industry and to get more women into the industry. It's kind of been commonly dominated by by males.
Unfortunately, there are no women brewers currently in Penticton, and so we're really trying to bring awareness in hopes to inspire the next generation to kind of take up brewing and join us in this community.
Biology students from Penticton Secondary School were involved in the brew. They're getting a real-life opportunity to apply learning from the classroom. And though the young women are participating in the brew, they're not able to consume the fruits of their labor just yet. But they are being introduced to an industry many of them may not think about.
We were doing like a fermentation unit, and I was like, yeast, beer, and living in the Okanagan.
Learning a lot of the terminology in the class was useful to be able to understand kind of the processes of what was happening here, and just understanding like the reasons behind why they're testing like pH and like the alcohol levels, and understanding how like the alcohol is like made from the fermentation of the yeast. Like that was kind of beneficial, so we could already understand what was going on here.
An introduction to beer making through science, or science through beer making. Zamir Karim, CBC News, Penticton.
A grassroots collective is helping Northern First Nations communities access menstrual products they otherwise could not afford. Moontime Sisters is aiming to break down barriers to menstrual inequity in BC and other parts of Canada. Take a listen.
I was reading an article one day, and Moontime Sisters came up, and of course a curious mind, I decided to read a little bit more about it, and I learned what the mission was, and I thought that it was an amazing organization dedicated to a really important problem that exists in Canada. So actually myself and Carly Pistaka thought about, bringing a BC chapter, and then we started it. I think everyone has heard of menstrual inequity when it comes to, rural places and places outside of Canada. You hear about it happening in India, you hear about it happening throughout the world. But I think when you bring it back that it happens here, I was shocked. I remember thinking, no way, it couldn't happen in Canada. But I think the more research you do and the more that you learn that it's a very prevalent problem, not only in these northern communities, throughout the Lower Mainland, but through certain factors, it's exacerbated for the northern communities and especially for Indigenous communities. So I think that it was a really big shock, and that's actually why I wanted to get involved, because I couldn't believe that a problem like that existed here and was still occurring. I think one thing that Moontime Sisters is very sort of particular on is the fact that it's not one-time support. This is continuous support. Another big pillar of Moontime Sisters is definitely that we only send what is requested or what is needed. I think there's a mindset that, what's best for other people when it comes to charities and organizations. So just sending what you think will help. And we sort of really like to steer away from that. And it's a lot about what the community wants. We're just trying to support other menstruators and empower them. Hi! For the donations. Thank you so much, by the way. Throughout the Lower Mainland, we had businesses and local organizations host donation boxes like this one. And after advertising through our social media, people would drop off what they could at locations near them, and then we would just go and collect them. But on our website, you can also donate any money if you've held a monetary drive. Oh, that's perfect. One thing that's really great about Moontime Sisters is it provides that education for people, because now people know, and the more people know, the more people can do to help. If you're able to, donating, that's great. If you can just spread the word, let other people know about us, that's kind of the main goal of this. So I think that it helps many people get educated on the issue. Whoa! My hope is that we work towards a future in which menstrual inequity doesn't exist, and in which periods can be talked about, publicly, and there's no stigma or shame associated with it. And where everyone, if you need a pad or a tampon, you have access to it, and those barriers don't exist anymore. That's what I'm hoping we work towards.
When two Italians made the big move to Vancouver for graduate school, they quickly decided the rents in the city were not going to work for them. So they joined the many people who've taken their home and put it on the road. Take a look inside their camperone.
Houses here are only for millionaires. That's our favorite spot. Here there are some facilities, there are bathrooms, and when it's warm, there were also showers, so we just stayed here. It's amazing. Coming back here in the evening after lectures and looking at the view on the ocean, the view on the city, it's really fulfilling. I'm from Italy, from a city called Padova, and I came here with my friend Paolo.
I'm from a small city called Vicenza. I'm studying with UBC with Alessio.
I would say 2 months before coming here, we started really looking for a camper van instead of renting an apartment.
Instead of, putting these $800, $900, $1,000 a month into rent, we could put the same amount of money for things that make life great. So we could buy a pair of ski, we could buy the pass for the gondola or the pass to ski in Whistler. You arrived in the perfect moment because Alessio every day makes bread, which we like to say, this is not homemade bread, this is camper-made bread. On the back there is the bathroom.
A good facility. We
use it more or less as a storage, 50%. We are still fighting who has to get the most comfortable bed, since
now
we don't want to keep the place for ourselves. We still are fighting to give the other the best place, and we keep sleeping in the smallest bed in the back.
We actually found the owner that didn't want to sell it, and we didn't want to buy it.
We came to a deal where we gave him $2,000 to keep the van for 1 year, plus fixing his van.
The apartments here are super expensive, and that's actually our response to this problem, buying a different kind of home which is not so expensive. And yeah, maybe we are building an alternative to this situation.
You can definitely sense the difference between having a choice and being forced to live in an RV.
Let's go and grab a fresh battery.
It's also perceived differently because at the end we are two students living in a van. It's perceived like, oh, that's cool. But for a person living in an RV, I think that the perception is different. We have a choice and they don't. Having people come to the RV makes things definitely special, and we wanted since the beginning to make the RV as a as a community center. I don't know, invite always people over and make everybody feel at home.
Hey! How's it going? Oh, it smells good in here.
Yeah,
that's the dinner.
Should I put this in the fridge?
Of course.
Okay.
Are you starving enough?
I'm starving. Let's eat.
Great.
I'm not just doing it for that's super good. Good. That was maybe one of the best pasta you made.
At the beginning of the experience, this camper van barely turned on. Step by step, we fixed all this stuff.
It's part of the adventure. Problems are definitely what makes things special.
Even when there were moist nights and cold nights, I never felt that this was the wrong home. It still kept being the best home ever.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, lovely day outside. We moved from slate gray to sun. People out just enjoying as much as they can.
Yes, an extra spring in everyone's step today, Dan. And I love it when those blue skies are dotted with the building cumulus, a sign of instability and a sign that we're not quite in the woods yet, literally or figuratively. We do have a slight chance of a stray shower coming down from the northwest, and then that's it. Let me take you through the overnight temperature. We sort of have two stories ahead of us. The cold overnights and the sunshine that will stick around for a couple of days tonight, getting down to -1, -2 across Metro Vancouver. Those temperatures will be hit around 7 a.m. So heads up for a very frosty start to your Wednesday, but high pressure is building as we speak across the interior. So solidarity from coast to interior mountain range to border to all the way to the north. We will see clearing skies. It's a lovely high pressure, even if it doesn't stick around for too long. So we will watch those temperatures to approach the freezing mark. This is for YVR. Again, getting a little cooler if you're closer to the valley, Tri-Cities, North Shore. Back up to an 8 tomorrow. A reminder that seasonal highs for this time of the year, based on last few decades anyway, around 11. So that is chillier. The sun is going to feel nice if you can get it right on the face, but watch for a chilly morning, Dan, and I've got the week ahead coming up.
Okay. Thanks very much, Joe.
You're welcome.
Weather update brought to you by Alegria by Cirque du Soleil. Opens March 25th at Concord Pacific Place.
That is a live look at the Polish-Ukraine border, where it is mildly busy. Snow is falling, even though it's very early in the morning. The number of people pouring across the borders into the EU from Ukraine continues to grow. Now over 2 million, according to the EU estimates, and more every day. The latest on the humanitarian crisis after this. Thank you for staying with us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. Over the years, more opportunities have opened up for women in sports. Here's a young Ojibwe teen who is excelling in the male-dominated sport of archery, and she's 13 years old. The CBC's Renee Lilly explains.
This is where you hold your bow.
Wasea Monroe Soldier is a member of Swan Lake First Nation, but she lives in Winnipeg. She first picked up a bow at the age of 10.
At first I was watching like hunting videos, so I was like on YouTube just like searching out like videos I like. I searched out hunting and I see like people like shooting animals with their bows. I was like, oh, it looks so cool. I should try it out.
Her interest for archery was first piqued because she wanted to connect to her traditional values.
When she first came to us and wanted to be an archer, her first words were that she wanted to be a hunter-gatherer. And then I asked how she wanted to harvest, and she said with a bow and arrow.
Fast forward 3 years, and Wasea is dominating her sport. There's a growing collection of medals on one of her bedroom walls.
I was kind of like happy and shocked because like I never thought I was like gonna go like that like noticed or like that that famous, I guess.
3D archery is when you use three-dimensional objects to shoot at instead of just targets. What's impressive is, not only is Wasea the only female on her 3D archery team, but at tournaments, sometimes she's not even competing against people her own age.
When she first started, here was this, small Indigenous girl, braids, and a bunch, competing against a bunch of men.
Wasea loves the sport so much, her efforts have earned her even more recognition by being named Archery Manitoba's Female 3D Archer of the Year for 2021.
She's coming a long way, and she's got more to grow, but she's open and she's easy to teach.
Wasea has also become a mentor to others picking up the sport.
I taught him some techniques, some advice, and like to adjust your grip, your anchor, all that stuff.
Her ultimate goal, however, is to become a hunter. Renee Lilly, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The United Nations says more than 2 million people have now been displaced by the war in Ukraine. Tens of thousands more are moving today as temporary ceasefires open humanitarian corridors. And as Sasha Petrusik reports, the president of Ukraine is calling for more Western support.
Children saying goodbye to parents, the elderly struggling to leave their bombed-out homes across shattered bridges, the infirm carried or pushed along in grocery carts. Yes, bombs exploding, he says, quite intense. Irpin is destroyed. A few blocks away, the blood-stained suitcase of a family that didn't make it. Desperately fleeing war, oil depots in flames, and cities in ruin, waves of Ukrainians continued to spread across the countryside today, sometimes taking advantage of humanitarian corridors, promised but not always provided by Russian attackers, uncertain where they were going or when they might be back. My wish is that we can all return to our home country, she says. 2 million have flooded border crossings into Europe in the past 12 days, more than arrived in 2 years during Europe's last refugee crisis in 2015.
More is to come. Worse is to come. Millions more will flee, and we must welcome them.
We will fight till the end, at sea, in the air.
Channeling the words of wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky took his plea for more help to the British Parliament by video link.
Please increase the pressure of sanctions against this country, and please recognize this country as a terrorist state.
In Russia today, sporadic protests against the war, like these women demonstrating defiantly with flowers for International Women's Day. Quickly arrested by St. Petersburg police. Not to worry, Russian President Vladimir Putin told Russians in his Women's Day address, "You can be proud of your loved ones," he says, "those in battle defending Russia." Though in truth, they are the ones invading. Millions of Ukrainians fleeing. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
The invasion of Ukraine is Canada expanding and extending its commitment to NATO in Central and Eastern Europe.
A total of 540 CAF personnel are now deployed here in Latvia, and approximately 130 more will join in the coming weeks. Well, today, I can further announce an early, multi-year renewal of Operation Reassurance to support NATO in Central and Eastern Europe. This mission was set to expire next year, and in light of the situation in Europe, we decided to renew it ahead of schedule.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with Canadian soldiers and other NATO troops stationed in Latvia. Here in Canada, a military cargo plane took off from CFB Trenton, heading for Poland, carrying both lethal and non-lethal aid for Ukraine. The shipment includes field rations, body armor, and anti-tank weapons and ammunition. The Defense Department says more flights like this will be sent in the coming days. The U.S., meanwhile, is further tightening its sanctions against Russia. President Joe Biden today announced a ban on Russian oil and other energy imports. Magda Gabrisalasa has the details.
The United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy.
President Joe Biden said this ban is about inflicting pain and keeping the pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin for continuing his attack on Ukraine. He said this was about defending freedom and that there's a price to pay for that. He warned Americans that the price of gas will continue to go up at the pumps, and he says that he has this warning for oil and gas producers.
It's no excuse to exercise excessive price increases or padding profits or any kind of effort to exploit this situation or American consumers, exploit them. Russia's aggression is costing us all, and it's no time for profiteering or price gouging.
Biden also says he understands that European allies are not in the same position to put a ban in place because unlike the U.S., the EU heavily relies on Russian oil and gas. As for where the U.S. is going to turn to make up for supplies, we heard Biden say that companies here are boosting production, but he also said this current situation should be a motivating factor to move towards clean energy. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Washington.
As the war in Ukraine drags on, some of the 2 million people evacuated are starting to arrive in this province, including Victoria. As Corey Sidaway with Czech News shows us, for families settling there, it's a mix of gratitude for the communities welcoming them in and heartache for those left behind.
It's an emotional reunion. Mother and daughter meeting on Canadian soil after escaping war-torn Ukraine. Her daughter, Katerina, translating for her.
On the day that they were leaving, Russia was bombing the military airport outside of our town. The experience was surreal.
Katerina's mother and her brother made the impossible decision to escape Ukraine for safety.
It was incredibly difficult to leave because your whole life is there. Everything that you've built throughout your life, your family, your mother, her husband is there, my father. He decided that he was going to join the defense unit to protect our town, to protect our country.
In Victoria, Ukrainians escaping the war have been welcomed with a wave of support.
He is thankful to Canada and Canadians that they welcome them so warmly here. But they are planning to go back to Ukraine.
Irina's parents, Nadia and Roman, left their hometown, which they've lived all their lives, with 2 hours' notice.
The closest bomb explosion was 80 kilometers from them. So for perspective, it's like from here to Duncan.
And took only the essentials.
He left in the clothes that he was wearing that morning, just like that.
Now that they've reached safety, survivor's guilt is setting in.
His heart is there and he feels guilt for sure.
Feeling helpless, watching now from safety as their country fights for its right to live, as a neighbor tries to stamp it out.
Russian people and Ukrainians, we called brothers. They used to call each other brothers. Not anymore.
So they sit with mixed emotions of gratitude and guilt.
Glory to Ukraine, Heroyam Slava, glory to heroes.
Hoping for a better future.
The United Nations now estimates that more than 2 million people in Ukraine have fled the fighting so far. And last week, the federal government announced Canada is preparing to take in an unlimited number of refugees from the conflict. But refugee agencies in BC yet say they can't say how many people they can take in here. For more, we're joined by Chris Friesen. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the Immigrant Services Society of BC. Chris, Ottawa announced they'll be waiving the typical visa requirements to help take in, as they say, a limitless number of refugees people fleeing this conflict. What are the biggest challenges for your organization right now?
The biggest one is the lack of post-arrival planning. We have no sense of the target. We have no sense of the time frame. And this makes it extremely difficult to understand what role we'll be asked to play.
And what logistically does that mean? What are particularly some of the challenges? Is it housing? Is it food? What is it?
So given that we're in the midst of the Afghan Special Initiative, it's about arranging logistics for temporary housing. It's around protocols for 14-day quarantine. It's access to health care, opening bank accounts, finding permanent accommodation. These are all pieces that we need more insight in from Government of Canada.
And I want to talk about what Ottawa has told you, or perhaps not in a moment, but how does this crisis compare with other refugee movements? You mentioned Afghanistan, Syria. What about those?
So Syria, as an example, when during that election and during 2015, we were advised that Canada was going to accept 25,000 Syrians. We had 3 months, plus or minus advance warning that before the 3,500 arrived in British Columbia. So we were able to do some very quickly, put together the capacity, find the hotels, get the staff onboarded and trained. That's not yet. We don't have that clarity. So it makes it very difficult to, ascertain our ability to respond. And those are my colleagues, both here in British Columbia, but also across Canada.
What has the federal government told you, at least so far, about any sense of the logistics?
So nothing on the logistics side. They have stated, again, things are evolving on a daily basis, but they have stated that this is likely not going to be considered a refugee humanitarian movement. There will be no provisions for Canadians to privately sponsor Ukrainian refugees, as an example. But beyond that, we're waiting for formal response to a number of questions that we submitted in the last 2 days.
And any sense when they might get back to you?
There's a number of announcements and decisions that Minister Fraser has to make. And so we're being advised that, hopefully within this next few days, we'll have some clarity.
All right. Chris Friesen, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Bye now.
The road to economic equity for women and men is a long one. By some measures, it could take hundreds of years. Now, some women are trying to speed that up after this.
And I think certainly the equal pay issue is a crucial one. There's no excuse in the world for us earning 60% of what men earn. That's an intolerable situation.
Because it's a human right. I mean, everybody should have it. Should have equal access to universal daycare.
This year there was a new element, a warning that the women's movement and the gains that it's made are under attack. They talk about
There was a sense that we had gained quite a bit of ground, that things were just going to move along in terms of abortion on demand, in terms of everything that you hear everybody speaking about today. And I think that now it becomes apparent that perhaps we were too happy with ourselves.
And carry on this 82-year-old tradition, they did.
We need to continue. We need never to give up, because like the salmon, we will reach our destination, and we will once again regain the strength that was ours, the position that society gave us.
But we always have things to say every damn day. We got noise to make, women! We are not yet free, but we are together, and we will be free.
Tell me what it's like for you being here today.
A rebirth.
And now for
a regrowth.
Speaker on our list for First Nations women. I would
Getting
like to
together
now call
with
on
as a people, community involvement, my friends here, that's what it means to me. And it makes me feel good.
What's it like for you personally being here today?
Really exciting.
And that is a very important question
because I believe so much in women fighting for the equal rights.
200 years ago.
About 600 women attended the march and rally. Paisley Woodward, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here are some of the stories we're following for you tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
So tough for all the drivers.
It's pretty stubborn and pretty strict with changes.
Don't want to drive anymore.
Many people are feeling the pinch of soaring gas prices, but for those who drive for a living, they say they're feeling an even bigger crush as gas prices shoot up. Taxi drivers and food couriers are caught up, and there is no relief in sight from the province.
It'll be different, and that's really hard to get, to sort of deal with, that this disaster is going to create some winners and losers. But as a municipality, what we do is our best.
An emotional day for Lytton's mayor and others. Today, for the first time, crews were able to use heavy machinery to start moving some of the debris from last summer's devastating fire. Workers know there could be artifacts or hazardous material in that rubble, but officials hope remediation work can be finished by September.
We were doing like a fermentation unit, and I was like, yeast, beer, and living in the Okanagan.
And just understanding the reasons behind why they're testing pH and the alcohol levels, and understanding how the alcohol is made from the fermentation of the yeast. That was kind of beneficial, so we could already understand what was going on here.
They can't legally drink it yet, but some high school students in the interior got to dive into a growing BC industry on this International Women's Day. Tin Whistle Brewing in Penticton welcomed biology students interested in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math to learn about brewing. The owners say it's a good way to welcome more women into an industry that is normally dominated by men. As we mentioned, this is International Women's Day, marked by events here at home and around the world. And gender inequality is noticeable when it comes to economic potential. In fact, the World Economic Forum estimates it will take 270 years for men and women to be equals on this level internationally. Nisha Patel shows us how some women are trying to change that by investing in other women.
Okay, what do you think about the color?
Bunny and Taryn Guttrora started their company Bloom in their parents' basement. Now their skincare and menstrual products are at big retailers like Sephora.
Growing up, we never saw people who looked like us running companies.
As young women of color, the path to building a business was filled with roadblocks.
Often these personal care companies were run by men who didn't have a tie to the product the same way we do.
Around the world, the people making funding decisions are overwhelmingly male. So out of the billions of dollars for global startups in 2020, female founders received just a sliver of that pie.
Zero Indigenous, as we knew.
In Canada, some high-profile women have been trying to change that. Arthi Sharma is one of the co-founders of Backbone Angels, a collective that funds businesses started by women and women of color. And their investments are about more than just writing a check.
Whether that's advice, whether that's going through your financial information every month, or whether that's just being your moral support.
One piece of feedback that we get is,
Sharma wants women to know that if they're trying to start a business, the money is out there.
The biggest impact that we could make is actually invest in women entrepreneurs really early on.
Bloom is one of 42 companies Backbone Angels funded last year. Cobble is another. It's a healthcare app for new parents. Cobble's CEO Swati Mata says because the majority of women starting a business are doing it for the first time, they can be seen as higher risk.
Collectives are helpful because they're willing to take that risk early on.
A risk that Sharma says is worth it.
We want more women entrepreneurs, we want more women in tech, and we want more women in leadership positions.
And more funding for women means more women like these will get that seat at the table. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a great big fort that's the talk of the street in Ottawa. How the snow fort is as much about inclusion as play. That's coming up. And at almost 6:43, a live look at Victoria from the Swans Hotel. Sunny and cool tonight. Today, and overnight lows downright chilly. Johanna breaks down why our weather is so wintry despite the calendar, even though it's still winter. Next. There's that old expression about how one's home is their castle. Well, one Ottawa family has a home and a castle, don't you know? The snow fort outside their house is helping to build something of an outdoor community. As Stu Mills shows us, that's been especially rewarding for their 15-year-old son.
In this English-style Tudor neighborhood in Barrhaven, a castle is going up, naturally.
Well, this is kind of like a little Greek church. It's got lights inside, so at nighttime it's got this yellow glow coming out the windows.
This is the Grimes family's first winter here, and the fort has been allowing them to build relationships.
Neighbors have been actually bringing snow from their driveway over to our front lawn here so that we can make it bigger. You don't like the white theme?
15-year-old Liam Grimes is developmentally disabled, but Liam's family likes to think of him as outdoors enabled. He spends hours out here shoveling, moving, building. And this growing snow fort has been helping Liam to stay connected to his neighbors and people who might never otherwise get a chance to meet him.
You know, disabled people are always shunted aside. They're shut-ins, especially in winter. They're isolated. And doing this, he gets to know all the neighbors. They come by, they talk to him about his fort. Onto the top of the...
Getting outside, meeting people, doing regular things, especially during the pandemic when so much has been closed, has been important for the Grimes family.
White clouds coming in, Dad.
White clouds coming in?
Yeah, it might be snow tonight.
You're expecting snow today?
And tomorrow, too.
For a few years, David Grimes has been developing this assistive device, too, to help his son get the hang of gliding along the ice.
We're not going to leave him on the bench when we go skating.
The adjustable design means people with different disabilities can get up and get moving, and Grimes hopes to share his invention with other families.
A bonus is we drink a lot more hot chocolate in fort building season because Liam thinks every time he comes in from building a fort, he gets a hot chocolate.
So it's a castle that builds community all winter long.
It's all part of inclusion. It's all part of being a part of life, affirming life. Not just for him, but for all of us.
Stu Mills, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, I want that fort. I would like it now, just outside. Just have some fun.
I thought you might like that fort. Yeah, isn't that how the saying goes? If life gives you snow, you make snow fort. I think
or run inside and stay warm. But either way, this is better.
Yeah, this is better. Yeah, and you know, I think the only place that might be able to compete with Ottawa's snow fort tonight, if you're watching from Cranbrook, you got 5 centimeters to work with tonight. That's it. So let's see what you can do out there in the Kootenays. Otherwise, we'll keep the snow out east for the forecast. Take a look at the wind chill tonight from coast to coast. It's a chilly -7 in Ottawa, with the wind chill -11s out towards Halifax and St. John's. We were dealing with near blizzard conditions for most of the day for Regina and Winnipeg. You can still see that Arctic air freshly surged from where we were this time yesterday. The mildest air on the south coast, of course. Taking you through the next 24 hours, and there is still just the slightest risk of a stray shower in the next couple of hours, generally, though, clearing overnight. And because we have clear skies, we have the coldest temperatures. So all of that heat being allowed to escape with no clouds to hold it in, which is why around 7 a.m. we'll see those minus temperatures across Metro Vancouver. So watch for a frostier start. I'm actually letting this model run through most of your Wednesday. Maybe a few high clouds to skirt through for the back end of the day. Otherwise, blue sky is the story for the south coast. And high pressure really clearing those skies out for all of BC, as I mentioned earlier. Watch as I take you through Thursday, though. This specific system starts to spread cloud quite quickly through Thursday morning. Now, I think for southern BC, this is mainly the high variety. So I'm still going to put a good mix of sunshine in the forecast for Thursday, but you'll see those high cirrus, those wispy clouds sneak in for Thursday, thickening up as we head into Friday, and I've got the showers on tap for the end of the week into the weekend. Sunshine for everyone, though, tomorrow. Check this out. And there is quite a brisk wind. It's actually coming in from the southeast for Kelowna, Prince George, Williams Lake. So look for wind chills in the -20 range tomorrow with that chill. Things are warming up, though, right across the province. Here's Thursday as we head into Friday, almost getting back to seasonal by the time we hit the weekend. And that's the story for Metro Vancouver, too. Look at that overnight, though, Wednesday into Thursday. It'll be another chilly one Thursday and Friday. And then we see a bit of a role reversal with that Pacific air bringing the double digits back. 11 is bang on our seasonal. I think we can get some a bit more mountain snow as we head into the final days of winter.
We can keep it up there. That's okay. Don't mind.
I'm with you, Dan.
Very good.
Or a snow fort in the backyard.
Thank you. Cheers, Joe.
You're welcome.
If you're like many people and heading back into an office for work, you may be leaving a pet at home who's not really used to spending time alone, at least recently. How to get your pup ready for your big return. That's next.
It looks like any old hockey dressing room, right down to the smell and the gear. But take a closer look. You'll see a few differences. Welcome to Sunday morning practice. Here, the sharpest blades aren't at the bottom of your skate, but the sled. Add to that the picks on the short sticks the players drive into the ice to push themselves along. If you thought skating was hard, mastering these moves is even trickier, although 14-year-old Hadley Frittenberg seems to have no problem.
Confusing because you know what way to turn, but like
You have to put it underneath you while you turn, kind of.
This is hard.
Yeah, takes a lot of practice.
Watching Hadley, her dad David, he didn't even know this sport was an option for his daughter till an appointment at the IWK 4 years ago led to her giving it a try.
Learned about this just by accident. We were at the IWK for physio, and there was a sled there. And I'm like, what is this? And they told me, and I'm like, can she do this? And the physiotherapist said, yes, she can. I'm like, so it started from there.
Hadley's skills have not gone unnoticed. She is an invite for a tryout for the national team. Like many of the players on the ice, there's a list of issues that keeps them from playing traditional hockey, anything from cerebral palsy to amputations or club feet. But that old saying, where there's a will, there's a way, is very true here. Amputee Logan Munden is only 12. He's from a hockey family. He has an instinct for this game. And when he watches the Canadian para-hockey team in Beijing, he dreams of following in their footsteps.
They're pretty cool. Like, they're pretty quick and fast and really good at the game.
Yeah. It's hockey, it's Canada. People just want to do that, and this is another way to play it.
One player on the ice who leads by the motto that anything and everything is possible, Paralympian Paul Tingley.
I learned so much from parasports, so I want to pay it forward to others and just make those opportunities. And I know that it works because people love it, and we're just trying to set up the opportunities so they have success.
And he hopes these kids, inspired by the 2022 Paralympians, will shoot for the stars. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Bedford.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 16th, join the Black Business Association of BC and the cast and crew of CBC's new hit series, The Porter, for a conversation about diversity and inclusion in TV and film. The free virtual event will explore the panelists' experiences filming The Porter and discuss the importance of Black inclusion in film. Learn more and register at blackbusinessbc.ca.
Many dogs make for great companions, especially during quarantine. But with many people heading back to work and offices, some pooches may be clawing at the door as their owners leave. Here are some expert tips on how to ease your pup's separation anxiety.
What happens before you work from home and then now you're going to go back to the office, right? Always ways you can help your dog, but you have to make sure first that when you go back to work that your dog can handle these short absences. Paw? If you suspect your dog has any sort of anxiety, if they've destroyed your home at all, what you want to do is put a little camera, use your computer, use whatever, leave for 5 minutes and then see what your dog does. If your dog is pacing around nonstop, if they are restless, if they can't settle, if they are screaming at the door, trying to dig at the entrances, if they are trying to destroy the door frames, you definitely need to talk to your veterinarian. You need to talk to a forestry trainer and you need to get them working on a separation anxiety program. If you're going to get going back to the office, create these short absences and you slowly increase them. You don't do it right away. You don't say, okay, yeah, my dog's fine, I'm going to go away for 8 hours. You know, work on the pre-departure cues. Pre-departure cues is where you walk to the door, you jiggle the door handle, you put your coat on, sit back down. You want to get the dog used to you leaving the house without it being a big deal. If you can't leave your house because your dog will destroy your home and they're going to go into that panic state, you then call the dog walker. You then call your family. You make it a support system that help your dog so then when you do leave, they are okay and they're not going to be in a panic state.
What was that? I think of it kind of like being the cool aunt. My neighbor, after 2 years of working from home, is going back to work. So My office is very relaxed and enjoy having dogs here. During COVID, she was home all the time with him, so she's not used to being alone and separation anxiety, and it's long hours to be alone. And also cost. I think having a dog in daycare 5 days a week or 3 days a week is a lot of money, so he doesn't want her to be alone.
Hi, Boomy. We're seeing dogs that are 4 months old and 5 months old and 6 months old. So it's a little bit more of a change for the dog. Knowing as much as we can about the dog beforehand is helpful. Overall, it's a pretty easy transition. The most important thing is like know what you want to do and start looking.
All right, thanks so much. Yeah. And we end tonight with some big sports news in the NFL. End of an era for the Seattle Seahawks and their fans. Quarterback Russell Wilson, who led the Hawks to their first ever Super Bowl championship, is being traded. He's set to suit up in the orange and blue of the Denver Broncos next fall. In return, the Seahawks receive a host of players and draft picks. Still, some critics wonder whether they got enough to justify this swap. The trade comes after much speculation about Wilson's happiness with the club and a disappointing season. They'll look to the NFL draft next month to begin to rebuild with some fresh talent. And to top it off tonight, reports that the Seahawks have also released longtime linebacker Bobby Wagner, a member of the famed Legion of Boom. So to recap, the Hawks are now free of the best offensive and defensive players they've ever had. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and our website, cbc.ca/BC. The next local news is at 11 o'clock with Zara Premji right after the National. Good night.